Vancouver, lice can be a stubborn problem to shake off, even for fish. It takes juvenile salmon an average of 50 leaps out of the waters to dislodge just one sea louse, according to new study from Simon Fraser University. Baby chum salmon like this one in Clayoquot Sound, near Tofino, BC, can be infected by sea lice and die. Alexandra Morton submitted. The findings concern researchers because while adult salmon often deal with parasites, young salmon, which don't have scales to protect themselves yet, can spend a great deal of energy trying to shake lice off. Previous research has shown salmon infected with sea lice jump out of the water more often than those without, but this is the first time scientists have determined the jumping behavior is an effective way of dislodging the parasites. Emma Atkinson, a research assistant with the conservation research group Salmon Coast, set up an experiment involving about 500 fish, each about 10 centimeters long, in 6 rounds of testing. Wild Fraser sockeye salmon were caught in BC's Johnston Strait and separated into 2 pens. One pen had no covering and the other was covered by a mesh roof that prevented the salmon from jumping out of the water. After 3 days, researchers counted the number of sea lice on each fish. Article continued below. They found that the fish that were able to jump had 22% fewer lice than those that weren't able to jump. Juvenile salmon that were prevented from jumping had as many as 10 lice on them. Researchers also counted the number of leaps the fish made during the experiment and calculated that it took an average of 50 leaps out of the water to dislodge one louse at that early life stage. That's a lot of energy to be putting into dislodging lice, said Atkinson, who recently completed an undergraduate degree at SFU. Sea lice can prevent juvenile salmon from feeding, but expending that amount of energy on dislodging sea lice can also make the youngsters susceptible to disease and predators, said Atkinson. Read more. Feds approved fish farms despite known concerns, documents reveal. Article continued below. Fisheries in Oceans Canada not adequately managing salmon farming risk. Environment Commissioner. Dead fish swimming, lice from fish farms infecting wild baby salmon in BC. Although sea lice are a natural phenomenon, salmon don't normally have to deal with lice until they are older, said Atkinson. But researchers at Salmon Coast said they have observed juvenile salmon leaping out of the water frequently. Some scientists believe the fish are leaping in order to shake off sea lice. Atkinson said she sees the behavior in coastal areas. You see it everywhere, she said. They're not particularly graceful, so it is quite obvious. They'll hop out of the water and then slap down on their side. Salmon Coast has been monitoring the relationship between sea lice on juvenile salmon and nearby fish farms for more than 18 years. Various salmon researchers have suggested sea lice from fish farms can jump onto wild juvenile salmon swimming by. The sea lice jump over on the farm, and when the juvenile salmon swim past the farm on their way out to the ocean, they pick up the sea lice, said Atkinson. But fish farms are not necessarily the culprit because the industry follows strict federal regulations that only allow up to 3 lice per fish, said Sean Hall, spokesperson for the BC Salmon Farmers Association. He wasn't able to confirm how often companies checked their fish for lice. Hall acknowledged there is a risk for sea lice at fish farms. But some companies spend millions of dollars purchasing delicing equipment, proving that fish farms are serious about lice control. He said, "This is a potential issue that has been well managed through regulation and by some really strong action on the part of salmon farmers to invest in tools like these hydrolyzers, freshwater baths, and other methods to make sure we keep the level of sea lice in our farms low." The salmon fish farm industry in BC contributed $1.5 million to the province's economy in 2016, according to BC Salmon Farmers Association. Atkinson conducted her study on juvenile salmon and lice at the Salmon Coast Field Station in the Broughton Archipelago, BC, in Quiquassat-Tynex-Haxwaymes territory. Wan Yili is a Vancouver-based reporter covering urban affairs and new technology. Follow her on Twitter, @WanYaili.